Hey guys, welcome to another Trade Genius podcast. Bob and Phil here. As always, guys, no matter what the Treasury is doing, no matter what the Fed is doing, they've lost control. We're going to show you why in the following video. Let's dive in.
Trade Genius.
Hey buddy, it's Bob with Trade Genius. Hey, it is holiday season and our holiday specials are running right now. Use promo code HOLIDAY. You already blew it. You missed the Black Friday specials, but this is your second chance to take advantage of some of the best pricing that we do for the year. Check us out, tradelikeagenius.com, tradegenius.co, tradegeniusacademy.com. All roads lead to Trade Genius. Check us out. Incredible deals. Thanks for listening.
Okay, Bob. So, right now we have the Fed on a very dovish pivot. Yellen's declaring victory, soft landing achieved. And yet we're seeing data that just looks completely the opposite. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, and we've talked about this before, the Fed has been trying to balance this thing on a seesaw. How loose can we make financial conditions without losing control on inflation? And as we saw with this December CPI and PPI, is that it's starting to creep up on them. And at the same time, the economic data keeps showing that we're having collapsing liquidity. So the only liquidity that they seem to want to project is that, hey, the stock market's not doing too badly, so everything must be great. But behind the scenes, Phil, it's an abortion. And let's throw the first slide up here so we can show people what's happening. And this is not like a 1 week thing. This has been like the last 6 months of this. And I think maybe that's why Paul got scared and why Yellen's been pumping on the T-bill so hard, because they know if they tap the brakes too hard, the car's going to spin out on the ice.
Right.
And this one here is the financial easing condition that we're talking about here. Fastest ever. You would think that we would be at 0% unemployment and we'd be having like 7, 8, 9% GDP growth with this. But we have a situation where they call this thing pushing on a string. You've heard that phrase from before. No matter how loose the Fed makes things happen, you can't force people to take on more debt. Either they're able to or unwilling to. And I think we're at that point. We've reached what I would call max debt saturation.
Right.
And now it's going to start blowing up. And what's interesting also, Phil, is that with all this liquidity that the Fed claiming they're putting in, it's getting absorbed and it's not helping anything. And look at the multifamily housing number here. If this was 2007, 2008, we would already be into crash mode. I think this is what people don't get. I think the Fed and Treasury learned from 2008. We got to have this mirage of the stock market to keep people from truly panicking. And so they've been doing whatever they can to keep this thing alive. But look at multifamily housing. And this is huge because this is all the small and mid-sized banks, Phil, lend to these guys, number one.
Right.
And number two is that when these things go into delinquency, you may be renting from these people, but you might not be getting the services you want if they go into bankruptcy because, money dries up. Contractors don't get paid. There was a situation back in for me, it was the early 90s. 1991, we had the S&L crisis, is that a whole condo complex went under. And they said, oh, somebody just bought them out. But there was 2, 3, 4 years of litigation with the contractors trying to get their money back, and nobody did anything to the property. And so you're stuck in this property, and then people started not paying, and it started becoming like a nightmare. And we're going to see more of those things again. When these things happen, and when homeowners associations go bust, look out Charlie Brown, because then you really have problems. And we're starting to see these things start to creep up. And let's talk about homes here too, Phil. So we have not only multifamily trouble, but here's the median prices of homes are contracting. Now, this is kind of being hidden because the volume's so low because people are not selling willingly. And I think when we see this fall and volume rise, then we know we're knee deep in it. But what's real estate? The GDP contribution of real estate, I think, is like 18 or 20%.
Yeah, it's pretty high. Yeah.
Of our economy. Remember that? We did a video on that. And that's insane. And you got got the auto markets imploding, okay, and then you got the insurance markets that are, people are going to start dropping insurance, because they're like 42% increase of insurance in North Carolina for home. It's just squeezing people's ability out. And if you have to pay the insurance, you're not buying something else.
Right.
And then here's the last one. This is the one that I think maybe scaring the Fed the most, Phil. Permanent job losses have accelerated. The job report last month on the surface looked like it was another victory for Bidenomics. And then when people started reading the details, they're like, OMG, they're all part-time jobs.
Yeah.
And full-time jobs are going away. They're not coming back.
No.
You're going to see the power of AI and robotics and demographics. They're coming, and it's going to be an absolute nightmare. And the Fed just can't make jobs up for people, and when I mean the Fed, I don't mean the Federal Reserve. I mean the Feds, the government, because they're going to be an environment where the Republicans aren't going to help the Democrats, win an election. And so we're going into this unemployment at the wrong time, Phil. So anyway, I've been yakking away here. I'd like to get your thoughts.
Yeah. So when I look at the things like home delinquencies and permanent job losses and things like that, that's where I start to shift way more bearish in my outlook, because usually when you're going to get a slowdown in the economy, I think the first things you're going to see are credit card delinquency rates rise or credit card balances rise. We've seen that happen already. You'll see the car market take a hit. We've seen that already. Why? Because these are just, secondary things that if you're going to stop paying bills, housing's usually the last one to go, right? Or you're going to defer things on credit cards and things like that. So I think now we're getting to that point now where we're down to the brass tacks here. We're down to job numbers are starting to accelerate in the wrong direction, and mortgage delinquencies are starting to accelerate in the wrong direction. And you can look at every single recession and you're going to see that rhyme over and over and over again. So I think here we are. And yeah, Yellen out there, and look, Yellen, every time she opens her mouth and declares something, it's always wrong. Like, look at her track record. It's always wrong. She said we weren't going to have another big financial crisis. We had COVID. She says we've achieved soft landing. That's an opinion. I don't think if you really look at the data, there's any soft landing here. But it's all propaganda because we're going into an election cycle. And the Treasury is a very political mouthpiece. Even though they have a job to do, they're doing it for an administration. So it's always going to be a political mouthpiece, and you have to take that stuff with a grain of salt. So I think the real clue here is the Fed pivoting so quickly, right? Remember, not the last meeting, the meeting before last, they told us don't expect any rate cuts till 2025. The markets, so the bond market is pricing in recession. The Fed fund futures market that they basically tried to price in future rate cuts are extremely aggressive. They've been aggressive for over a year now, been wrong. Maybe they were early, but they are as aggressive in pricing in cuts as we've seen so far since the highs back in the end of 2021 in the market. So I think the smart money's positioning, Bob, and I think that Yellen is doing everything she possibly can. I think they're breaking out new plays in the playbook, and they're trying to defer this thing, but I think that they have run out of rope. And so, what else can she do? I don't think there's much left. Can she continue to do T-bills? Possibly. But, it's like at some point that doesn't work. The math doesn't work. And even if this administration gets reelected, that's going to be a tough road ahead because of the T-bill situation that they worked up. So, I think we're in a situation where I think you have to finally let natural market forces take over and just let this recession do its thing. The sooner this thing's out of the way, the better. We can be off to the races again, because my gosh, they've learned how to lever up this market real good, and we're going to probably have the best bull run we've ever seen after this thing's done. But man, they just are fighting it tooth and nail. And I get it, it's part of, they don't want to have it. Nobody wants to have it on their watch, but it's got to happen. Otherwise we create a bigger problem. And I think Powell acknowledged that, but I think he sees the light now, and there's nothing more that they can do. They've raised as far as they can go. I think raising rates are probably done. And I actually think the thing that is the surprise, I think, will be that they'll never kill inflation. I think that the new normal will be 3%, and they're just going to tell you to live with it under the guise of, well, we got to print now because we got to go back to QE. So get used to 3% inflation so we can get out of this recession.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're adding $2 trillion to the money supply, and if they want to get the inflation rate down, which they have not done, the lowest we've gotten is point some percent. They've not even gone down to their target. But I mean, if they really want to provide relief to families, I mean, we're going to need like an $8 or $10 trillion contraction, in economic activity, to force prices down. And when that happens, the banks blow up. And remember, the Federal Reserve's sole mission in life is for the banks. It has nothing to do with protecting the consumer or anything like that. It's to make sure the banks always have liquidity available to them, but they can't guarantee solvency. And so the Fed knows they can't create a deflationary environment, to clear out the underbrush because the banks are so leveraged. And that's the thing, the only thing that really angers me the most is I can understand the politicians doing what they're going to do because, that's expected of them to protect their constituency, right? But I expect the Federal Reserve is supposed to be the brake on these guys, not in cahoots with these guys.
Yeah.
And that's what's been happening is that they're totally in cahoots. And so they don't ever provide the hard medicine. And hard medicine always has to be imposed on them. And then it just becomes awful for us because, we're the ones that have to deal with instead of a one or two. Like in 1920-21, we had a depression that lasted 1 year. Cleaned out the dead wood, we moved on. And then we had one in 29, and instead of cleaning out the dead wood, they did everything they could, and we didn't get out of it until after World War II. People think Roosevelt did anything. Roosevelt didn't do anything. It took the shortages of World War II and full employment of a war to get us out of that environment. And here we just keep dinking and dunking and do stupid things. Now we got a demographic crisis on top of it. So when this thing goes down the hill, this is not going to be these like, it'll be back up. And everybody who's dreaming about 2024 is going to be a great year because it's an election year. We have data that tells you it's at best to flip a coin. And so at worst, we have an environment here where you can park your money for a year at 4.5% and 5% and get off the merry-go-round. And I think a lot of people are going to get that way, especially if something on the political side happens that are, Biden, God forbid, has a truly debilitating, visually debilitating event, over the next couple months that's going to throw the whole political world topsy-turvy. You throw Trump in jail, topsy-turvy. We're hearing today about Hezbollah has sleeper cells now in the country. And if they pop something that's just not a one-day wonder kind of a pop, I don't think people realize how close we are to becoming a black swan factory here. There's a lot of things that can come up here. Market's too fragile, Phil.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Guys, let us know what you think. Do you think that we are on track here, or do you think otherwise and think that things are going to be rosy and we're going to continue to push higher? Post those comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks, Bob. Thank you guys for watching. Please hit like and subscribe. Smash that notification bell if you can. And also check out our specials over at tradegenius.co. If you're needing help in this market, come on in. We'll help you navigate through it. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Trade Genius.